Welcome to Pop.0 with Bryan Chaffin and John Kheit.
Love that voice. Today is Wednesday, January 10th, 2018. This is a video podcast for the Mac Observer. I'm Bryan Chaffin, editor-in-chief for TMO. That's my microphone. And this fellow here.
And I'm John Kheit. How you guys doing? Hopefully everyone's having a good time at CES. Did you go? You're not at CES right now, right, Bryan?
I'm not. I'm manning the fort this year, coordinating all our content and covering news and stuff like that.
Well, and I guess it relates a little bit to our lineup for today, because as always, we have 3-ish topics and we're lying. So today, topic number 1 is Chinese Apple server occupation. Topic 2 is smart homes and CES
and Apple.
Yep. And topic 3 is Oak Island, and we might get a parental guidance thing in there if we're bored.
So, maybe,
because we're lying. So
maybe I should add that we should offer a parental guidance for this show. Because
what the fuck's your problem?
Because it ain't safe for work, or really I don't think if I had young children, I don't think I would want them listening to the show.
Listen, the sailors from the dock constantly write us, and if anything, they're telling us it's too family friendly.
They are not, and it is not. But that's fucking cool, dude. So whatevs. All
right. So Chinese server occupation.
You came up with that title. I like that.
Thanks. It's let me see if I could find the story. I think you were writing one up. I don't know if you've.
I did. Yeah. It's on TMO's homepage, and
oh, okay. Well, let me anyway, the short gist of it is that the Chinese government has put out new regulations that require that outside technology services provider, cloud services providers, host their data, host user data, Chinese user data in China on Chinese servers that are not the companies.
Yeah, because they want to protect Chinese privacy. the balls on that government, man. The governmental balls on that damned government. I say that I would love to visit China someday, and all the things that I write about China and all the things that I say about China in podcast, I don't know that it'd be safe for me to do so.
China is not on my top 10 list to visit country-wise, just because kind of pollution. I don't think Americans are particularly welcome there, although that makes the list very short, because I'm not sure Americans are particularly welcome in a lot of places these days.
Here's what you do. You wear, and I've got Canadian friends.
Fuck Canada.
I got Canadian friends who want to lynch me for saying this. You wear the Canadian pin lapel. I'm just kidding. Can't cheat like that.
One, you can, but whatever. Fuck Canada.
I love Canada, man. What's wrong with you, dude? Canada's awesome. Canadians are awesome.
You know what is cool about Canada? For once, they're not the big fucking pussies that they normally are, and they're properly cold shaming America, which is like, oh my god, it's like 0 degrees outside, and they're like, motherfucker, it is literally colder outside of my house right now than it is on Mars. There are people that are like, it's -40. The wind chill makes it -100. It's colder than it is on Mars, fuckers. Stop bitching, you fucking whiny bitches.
Okay, but that's all relative, right? Because I mean, I remember growing up I grew up in Texas, and when I was a kid in the 70s, it seemed like temperatures would routinely pop well over 100 during the summers. And then I'd hear news reports, back, it would be like Peter Jennings, because I worship that guy. And he would be talking about people dying in Canada because temperatures were in the 80s and 90s. And I couldn't understand what the deal was. But when you're not used to it, the relative cold or the relative heat matters.
Dude, there's no relative here. When it's 40 fucking below, rubber turns to stone. You can't drive your fucking car. You have to put warmer heater things on your fucking tires because the rubber turns to fucking stone. It's fucking cold. I am all for them shaming the fuck out of us whiny bitches. 0 degrees, it's cold. It's like, no. Fucking -40, fuckers. Shut the fuck up. That's why they're all huddled all along the border. As close as they can be to the heat. It's fucking cold. Anyway, we've digressed. So, right. So, of course, I'm sure that they use some bullshit like this is for security, but it's kind of a complex issue. I'm trying to make up my mind. Do I want to be outraged about this or not? Which is a very short decision period for me, because I generally choose to be outraged about everything in bitch.
Yeah, it's like, I wasn't really following what you were saying there.
But what the reason is that is this the first time that Apple has not hosted its own data for users? And the answer is no. I'm sure that Apple at times has used services like something like Amazon, where they have a third-party data.
Or Akamai.
Yeah.
And for a long time, Apple used Akamai all around the world.
And they still may in certain areas, right?
Apple made Akamai.
Right. So that's not new or unique. And then is this the first time a government has made Apple host local data for a region? And the answer to that is no. Russia has done that, and various countries in the EU have forced that. And in the EU, it's interesting. They actually do it for enhanced user privacy, because the laws are much tighter on sharing user information in Europe than they are in the US, and actually most places on the globe. So that's not unique either. So it makes you wonder, why am I being outraged by China doing basically stuff that other countries have done? And then Apple, in this case, has done something to break its pattern of kind of sneakiness. And it has two instances of sneakiness, Brian, in the recent past. One is a lot of people feel that the battery issue, by not informing the public that they're throttling the phones, it's a sneaky way to force people to be dissatisfied with the performance of their phones, so they upgrade. It isn't an outright lie, but it's kind of a
Yeah, and I don't think that's why Apple did it.
Well, that's a whole different topic that we've argued about, and I tend to agree with you. But the point is, that's the perception by a lot of people.
Yeah, it is. I read a headline today from Boy Genius Reports, which is a publication that should know better, saying that Apple is slowing down old iPhones. And that's not the case. Apple is slowing down old iPhones with degraded batteries. And there is a world of freaking difference from slowing down all old iPhones and slowing down those with old batteries. I mean, Apple, anyway, we talked about that. But right. My point is, that's a report I read today.
So you're properly berating people that are not accurately reporting. But before Apple announced that it was degrading performance because of degraded batteries, a lot of people may have chosen to upgrade their phones because Apple failed to communicate that.
Yeah.
And that adds to this perception that they're being sneaky, and they did that. Now,
we talked about this in depth last week.
Right. So we can agree to disagree, but the point is, there is a perception that that's attitude. And then if you compound that with the Wi-Fi crack debacle, where they've totally miscommunicated, it's like two instances in a row where their miscommunication is kind of for shitty ends, is the perception. So in this case, I'm glad to see part of this is good, in that they've come out and said and told the world this is happening. On top of it, they're emailing users directly that, hey, your data is stored on is going to be moved to a Chinese server. You can either opt out and just kill your account, or just know that this is happening. So that's
and also read your terms and conditions, because they're going to change. I mean, that to me, it's just an outright warning from Apple to its Chinese customers.
Right, and it's good. It's
good.
So it stopped potentially a streak of kind of bad perceptions building, hopefully. So in that regard, it's good. But then it also brings to, so one, I think we discussed just a second ago that this isn't different in the sense that they've had their user data on non-Apple servers. They've had them in regions that force the issue, like Russia or the EU, for one reason or the other. Some, and we could debate, are those reasons honorable or not. So in a lot of ways, it's not different. And then the question becomes, is it less secure? Because it's pretty clear to me, and maybe I'm wrong, and I pray that I'm wrong. Like, I pray that my shitty personality and cynicism is not getting me to the right answer, which it unfortunately often does, which is China's a bunch of assholes, and they want this on their servers because it lets them break into people's data when they need to or want to. And is that the case? And the answer is, well, maybe. It certainly gives them local access, helps. But if Apple does what they purport they're doing, which is they're going to maintain encryption on the
wait, Apple didn't say that.
All right, well, that's a good question. If they don't do that, then clearly,
I mean, okay, Apple maintaining its own encryption is the only way I personally can see how they can do what they did say they would do, which is that they would be maintaining privacy and that no backdoors would be opened into Apple services. That's what Apple said. They just didn't say how they were doing it. The only way I can see that they would be able to make that claim credibly is if they are somehow maintaining control over the encryption.
Right. So let me read this is part of your article, where the Apple statement at the end said there'll be a series of customer communications over the course of the next 7 weeks to make sure customers are well informed of the coming changes. Good change, Apple. Let's keep that up. Apple has strong data privacy and security protections in place, and no backdoors will be created into any of our systems. So that could lead. So this will be fucked. If it turns out they're not encrypting the fuck out of this data, and meaning they just leave this data in the clear, while it's technically true they're not leaving a backdoor, but if it's in the clear and not encrypted, it's meaningless, right? It's just bullshit. So that will be beyond a black eye in their face.
Wait, there's another way, John.
Okay.
I mean, is it okay for me to interrupt here?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. If the company that they're partnering with here, quote unquote partnering, is maintaining the computers, but Apple has full and sole control over the services, Apple could still be credibly repping or doing what it's repping it'll do.
I'm not sure that's the case, because if you have physical access, you could just basically copy any of the data you want and fuck with it all you want. And yeah,
right, fair enough.
So in my opinion, that statement implies that the data is protected, and that means some kind of encryption. If the data is in the clear, then their statements are totally misleading. It's even more misleading than their crack statement.
But I just can't imagine it being that way, though. I can't if I can't imagine that that's the case anywhere that Apple services are being run, anywhere. Well, even when Apple controls the hardware.
When Apple controls the hardware, I would bet that they would. The fact that they didn't mention encryption is worrying to me, but maybe it's just kind of they're keeping the press release semi-light. If it turns out that data is not encrypted and is in the clear and easily accessible by the local company and or authorities of China, it will so flip my opinion about Apple. It will be the third strike of kind of misrepresentation in a row. But more than that, it will be such a profoundly full of shit misdirection that my default will from then on be never to trust Apple moving forward, because something fucking fundamentally wrong has changed and become the norm in the company.
That is a fair point. I would agree with that. I would say that there are some profound problems at Apple if that scenario ended up being the case.
Let's go with the better angels model. Let's assume they do what is implicit in that statement, which is the data is fully encrypted on there, right? So in some sense, let me go. If I had worse, that person was named Bryan, and I wanted to keep my data, but I was such a cheap bastard that I'm like, I'm going to use Bryan's hard drive. You know, I know Bryan wants to find out all my secrets and ruin me.
This is a great scenario so far.
So I would load up Bryan's computer where I'm stealing his hard drive space, but it's all encrypted. So it's pretty stupid in the sense that I'm giving Bryan a chance to at least brute force try to break that, because now he has physical access to the data. It is encrypted, but he could sit and just throw gobs of CPU processor on any one account or directory that's encrypted and maybe eventually crack it through brute force or because I chose a shitty password or whatever it was. But in theory, if I do a good enough job encrypting the shit out of it, Bryan would have a very hard time getting into it. So there is potentially a little silver lining in what seems to be kind of a poo stew of China basically having access to all Chinese Apple users' cloud data. And I guess the other little bit of silver lining is, for those that really want to be Pollyanna, in my opinion, is in Europe, the forcing of keeping data local within European servers is because they are heightened security and privacy standards there, that you're not allowed to move data from one server of one country in Europe to another without basically explicit permission of the user and whatnot. And that is for actually better standards. So in theory, that could be something that China is striving to do. Yeah, I'm not holding my breath that that's the reality of it. It's in my opinion, clearly to spy better on users. And when you have local access to data and infinite processing power and quantum computing, cracking processing power to get into any one account when you really want to, you're going to probably be able to get to that data. And that's probably why it's there. And it goes to one of I think your theses, where at a certain point they're going to China is step by step eroding the principles that kind of Apple, at least in a more sunny view, is known for, and making them betray more and more of kind of Apple's principles and the ones that we hold dear. And at some point, does that hit a critical mass where it's untenable? You just got to do at least what I have to give Google credit for, which is give the bird to China and say, fuck it, as much money as this is, it's not worth just betraying every one of my principles, and I got to get the fuck out. And this is probably a little step forward and closer to there. I think I could see how I would justify it, in that it's not unique to China. China didn't force this issue first. It's been done in other countries, but I don't think this is, helping human rights, generally speaking.
No, it's not. I mean, China. I mean, we have forces in our own government. Christopher Wray started this shit up again this week. Christopher Wray, the new FBI director, right? He's
a dumb fuck.
He's not. No, he's not. That's the thing, man. He's not dumb.
Dude, it was your own article, wasn't it? At the very end, he says, but I don't believe that it's
true. He says he doesn't buy the claim that it's not possible. So he wants a way to get into encrypted devices that doesn't make us all unsafe.
Right.
And he doesn't buy the claim that that's not possible.
By the way,
that's wrong, but he's not stupid. Let's not no. He's an intelligent person. That's the thing.
No, he's a dumb fucking dick. You don't listen to all the world's cryptographers and mathematicians that provide fucking mathematical proofs. Like, this isn't just like fucking ancient astronaut theory here that, you know, assholes are providing here. You can have a literal fucking mathematical proof showing you can't have what he wants. And he's like, fuck it. Listen, I'm near the edge of this flat earth and I just don't fucking buy this shit. I'm just not buying this.
Isn't it possible?
2 + 2 = 4. I think it could equal 5.
Isn't it possible that we can create a backdoor into encryptions and not let anybody else have access to it? And the answer is clearly yes. Yes, we can create that.
Wait. According to what?
Ancient alien theorists.
Ancient astronaut alien theorists.
My mistake. So, all right. Anyway, we have forces in our own government that have been pushing for the same kind of access that China all but has.
Wait, hold on. One more point on how stupid this motherfucker is. So, you know, on the one hand, I
hate defending him, but go ahead, please. Okay, here's my problem. My problem is I am furious at him for taking the stance. The stance is stupid. I do not think for a second that Christopher Wray is a stupid man. I also do not think that James Comey is a stupid man. As a matter of fact, I agree with many things that James Comey has done and said, right? But his stance on encryption is wrong. So, but I don't want to call him stupid.
Well, you're wrong. He's either stupid or an evil fuck. Those are our real options. Either that, both of these cocksuckers know damn well that the math works out and you can't have it both ways. And they're pushing people that don't know about encryption well enough to make it just say, well, I think, you know, if we give it a good college try, this can work out, kind of thing. And they're purposefully fucking misleading people that don't have a reason to know better. No one in the general public needs to know what the fuck encryption is about, but they're purposely misleading people to make it seem like it's just a matter of willpower and gumption, right? And not fucking mathematical certainty. Or they're fucking profoundly moronically fucking.
Or when you're in law enforcement and your obsession is stopping crime and solving crimes that have been committed, you lose sight of the things that of why the things that are important that keep you from doing your job to the best extent of what you see as your ability.
No, we disagree on this. This goes down to the corrupt prosecutor. They know damn well they're doing wrong. They know damn well they excluded information that shouldn't have been excluded. They know damn well what they did is fucking fucked in the head, immoral, and a lie. And they're using justice in the American way, cloaking themselves and saving us when they know damn well what they're doing is fucking just blowing up the foundations of what this fucking judicial system was supposed to be in the first place. So I don't buy that for a second. So again, my they're evil fucking cunts or profoundly fucking stupid morons.
All right, so there's a coin of this topic, and you and I are standing on the same side of the coin, but on opposite ends, looking across the coin and shaking our fist at each other because we both believe the same thing. I don't see malicious evil in Comey. I don't even see malicious evil. I don't know much about Ray yet. I don't see malicious evil in Comey on this, and I don't see malicious evil on Ray's part, but you do, and I understand why you do, and I'm kind of surprised I'm not on your team on this one.
Well, I'm not surprised at all because you've always been a more nice and decent person than I am, and unfortunately, every fucking time I've seen someone to be a piece of shit, it's sadly turned out that way. You again, it will turn out that either the FCC piece of shit is profoundly fucking stupid, which is my theory, or fucking malicious.
Here's the interesting thing to me, John. Now, I've written about this several times. General Michael Hayden, former director of the CIA, former director of the NSA, and former National Intelligence Director. I forget, right. He had a third topic.
And so he's a law enforcement guy, but apparently he doesn't want to catch the bad guys, Brian. Or
he's not. No, he's not a law enforcement guy. He's an intelligence guy.
Wow. Okay, that's law enforcement too.
But the thing is that intelligence is almost exclusively surveillance.
Right.
as opposed to law enforcement, where the easy way. Rick pointed out in our chat that they want the easy way out. That's actually what I think is a big part of the issue here. Is they want the easy way out, and General Michael Hayden, who is the guy that helped shepherd warrantless wiretapping. So he's not like an angel in my book. Here is they want the easy way out. Getting an echo, by the way. But what's my point here? He has said that the process that they went through, that the intelligence community went through, is that encryption makes their jobs harder, but on balance, it makes the United States stronger, because we need to protect ourselves against the rest of the world and against malicious hackers and criminal hackers as well. And they came to this conclusion when this is their job, yet law enforcement, both local, which is understandable why. I think it's more understandable why local law enforcement doesn't see the big picture, because they're local law enforcement.
They're lazy suckbags. That's why.
And the FBI, who has many other tools at its disposal, they want the easy way out. So it's fascinating to me that the intelligence community is on the right side of this.
So, well, the intelligence community plays chess a few steps ahead of the checkers games that the FBI is capable of dealing, who can't find its own fucking asshole after, a parade of shootings that are mind numbing. And anyway, and local law enforcement is even more incompetent and lazy. So they just want like people to basically say, I did it, right? Like no effort. Like I'm just going to confess and not have to do a fucking.
I'm not gonna tar all law enforcement with that broad brush, man.
So definitely with regard to anything on dealing with computers, that's the way. And to be fair to them a little bit, it's because they're not funded to have those capabilities. But what you'll find is that the real spooks, they're thrilled by this. They want you to feel that you are safe with your.
That's a fair point.
They want you to think that you're safe with your encryption because they know so many fucking bugs that they have an infinite. I mean, just think about this. At the processor level, they've been able for over a decade to pull any information they want.
Potentially pull any information they want. They
right.
can't,
right? Because
they'd have to have a system compromised already.
Yeah, and the NSA couldn't possibly figure out. I mean, all of our systems are so profoundly compromised. The Mac virus that just went around, there was just some dude that wanted to spy on people, and he was indicted. And he could turn all our mics on and our video on, and he was watching people surf porn and basically, I'm guessing, blackmailing them. And this is just some dude that was doing this for years, right? So I guarantee you, the spooks have 1,000,001 different ways.
That's true.
To get they want you, and there's not really much you're going to do about it. But they want you to feel that you're secure because they want everybody to feel comfortable. Now, the FBI and definitely local law enforcement don't have those kinds of abilities and resources. So they're the ones that are going, why don't you just confess and make everything easier for us? And we don't care that it totally corrupts the entire system of governance that we, ran away to form a whole new country for. Because, think of me having to, not be able to eat my third donut today or whatever the fuck it is. So that's what it boils down to. But
you are a cynical asshole, man.
Yeah, and it just turns out that cynicism proves to be right all the time, or most all the time. But again, when you think about it just logically, it's not because they're bad people, but they don't have tools, right? So they get a fucking iPhone that they confiscate, and the guy's a detective. He's not worrying about the fucking 85,000 exploits that are available out there, nor should he or she be. They have other talents, and the question is, how do you? The real answer isn't let's make everyone vulnerable and throw out our system of governance and due process and whatnot. Let's actually get these people resources to do their job better, so they could just quietly be smug about all the exploits, just like the NSA is, and get to those. Because when as soon as $1 million was offered, getting into that iPhone was not a problem.
It's true.
So,
yes, actually, it is true. The Celebrate ended up ponying up.
And there are so many exploits that are unpublished that the bottom line is that there's plenty of ways to get into it for the more sophisticated users, and the local authorities just don't have that. So the real answer is maybe it's a third market. Hopefully they get prices cheaper than that $1 million just to crack a stupid phone. But the point is that there's either departments that they can develop, or interdepartment agencies, or large, a government like an NSA opens up a branch to help local law enforcement to deal with these things, or third, hopefully.
No, you know what? No, screw that. I want the NSA disclosing the 0-day vulnerabilities that they come up with to exploit, to instead report them to the companies so they can be patched. If we're gonna start putting together wish lists, let's actually have the NSA doing that part of its job, because part of the NSA's mission, part of its mandated mission, is to help protect the United States against the rest of the world. It's not just to surveil. It's not just to gather intelligence. Part of their mission is to help protect us. And they put way too much effort into finding 0-day vulnerabilities that have not been disclosed anywhere else. And instead of reporting them, they use them.
Well, what would be interesting is if we upped our cybersecurity game a lot in this country, and not only did that, but they could be strategic. It's kind of like knowing that there's a kind of a dangerous geography or something somewhere, and you kind of realize, and this is their job, is to do a kind of a cost benefit analysis, see like, yeah, the odds of any American being hurt by this are close to zero. So, and the odds of us benefiting from this are good. So we're going to do that, versus, oh shit, this vulnerability is almost clearly going to be, if not already, or we have actually monitored that these syndicates are damaging us. Let's fix this. But I think reasonable people can agree that they could do some good in that regard. How much they keep secret versus how much they help is an interesting debate, and probably worthy of its own topic. But I agree with you.
To be fair, there are people who are much smarter than me who work on this on a daily basis.
Right. So and I suspect, to be also fair with them, I bet you they do some of that. I bet you they do find some of this and do report it. And we've seen that they've given reports, like even not to get too political, but when there were breaches, they've told people you've been breached and you should do something about it. So they have done stuff like that. So
yeah, it's a fair point.
All right. I think so. I still don't know how to feel about this, other than generally China's shitty. And
yeah, it makes. Here's an unstated theme for both of us. We feel very uncomfortable that Apple has made. I feel very uncomfortable. Is this true for you, that Apple has had to do this and has agreed to do this?
Yeah, it's a step in a negative direction. And by the way, when I say China's shitty, I don't mean like the country and the people. I just mean the government tends to be more on the oppressive side.
It's an authoritarian regime.
Yeah, that tends to do things more on the communist kind of shitty side and not on the people.
It controls information. I hate that. When you have to keep people from being able to get information, maybe your message is wrong.
Yeah,
it's kind of like suppressing the vote. If you can win elections only by keeping people from voting, maybe you have a shitty message.
And to be fair, the Chinese people have done an incredible amount of good unto themselves with a tiny sliver of freedom that they've been given, and I have a lot of respect for them in that regard. But their government is generally kind of oppressive dicks. So there you go. And I don't think, so I think this is another step in a direction that I wish Apple didn't have to go into. But on the other hand, I kind of get it. And if you were running Apple, would you have done anything different? I think they've done about as good a job as they're going to do.
Dude, that's the question right there. Because like, you look at Google pulling out, and Google pulling out of China when faced with the option of complying or leaving. And Google chose to complying with censorship, complying with the Great Wall of China requirement. And Microsoft chose to stay. And I have a lot of respect for Google for pulling out, but at the same time, for Apple, this is like some of its services are being curtailed, but the rest of the services are being there. Tim Cook's position is that us being in a market, and without saying this, us being in an oppressed market, a repressive market, is even if it's not exactly on the terms that we want to be on, it is on balance better for us and better for the people, the potential customers involved, the potential citizens of China in this case, that it's better. And I can't argue with that. At the same time, you know, like if China pulled out, then I mean, if Apple pulled out, China would just, you know, like if every Western company left China, China would be delighted by it because they would have full control over everything. It's such a no-win scenario. And he would, Tim, I think unlike Google, because Google didn't have a lot of Chinese business, Tim Cook would possibly face a breach of fiduciary responsibilities by shareholders who only want Apple to maximize its profits.
Well, that may be the case, but I disagree with you on a couple of points. And one of the points one of our viewers, Tiny Pix, made. But I think if all the companies pull out like they did in South Africa, it would be devastating to China. Not to mention, if you had that kind of consensus for all the countries to pull out, you would also have the ability to boot them out of the WTO. It would be devastating for China. And China, again, much like Russia and other, in my opinion, second, third world countries, they need their Ferrari dealership. They need their Jaguar dealership. They need these other outside companies to show how they've arrived. And if they can't have those products to show how awesome they are, they feel deprived. They feel like their country is not a first-rate country. So I think all those companies pulling out would have a very big impact. The thing I disagree with Tiny Pix about is he said exactly the NSA should be. Oops, no, I agree with you on that, Tiny Pix. With Tiny Pix says the FBI is playing dumb. One, I disagree. I don't think they're playing. I think they are fucking dumb. Wait, where was the thing you said? Maybe I misread it. Exactly answer protecting communications, but somehow they do the opposite for their own benefit. Oh, yeah, this is what I disagree with. I don't think China is asking for anything the U.S. government doesn't ask for. The rest is propaganda. Yeah, we fundamentally disagree. I guarantee you the U.S. government cannot demand for U.S. companies to say, you must put your data on this server that I'm going to get access to without a warrant. Now, you may say that's all minor or whatnot, but I guarantee you going through the process of getting a warrant is a pain in the ass that they would prefer not to have to deal with. And as of current law, they're not requiring people to put U.S. Client data in U.S. servers, which is what a lot of the rest of the world is doing. They may ask for that at some point, but they're not. So it's just different.
All right, we're at 36 minutes. I think that we have a dead, flayed, and tenderized horse in front of us.
Yummy glue. Okay, so topic number 2. Smart homes and CES. So what are your thoughts of the CES? I have my own. It's kind of a meh CES, and I think my view is in some disagreement with kind of the general vibe that's been out there. But you have, I think, a view on what this.
Well, I have a particular view on, particularly speaking, smart home stuff. In particular, voice controlled and activated smart home stuff. I've seen this blistering array of Alexa smart home integration and Google Home integration for controlling your fucking goddamn home, your smart home, with your fucking voice, which is what we want to fucking do. It's what I want to do for sure. And I've been thinking about this. I've been thinking about this, John. All right. So I do have the 2 light bulbs that are in this room right now. They're Sylvania's, golly, I can't remember. I think they're Smart Plus. I forget what they're called now. But I mean, and I enjoy them, and I can control them with Siri. And ignoring the fact that Siri somehow cannot fucking understand, hey Siri, lights out. Oh, she got it that time. She usually thinks that I'm saying what's up, which is really, 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 really annoying. But beside that, I have found that the it is very annoying to try to use my lights solely by voice. Right?
Yep.
And the reason being that if I don't have my iPhone out, or if I can't reach over and touch my like walking into my home office, and if I don't have my iPhone out, I've got to reach over and I've got to touch my Apple Watch and speak into it to get my lights to come on. It's a lot faster to just turn the goddamn things on. But what would be faster, what would be acceptably fast enough for me is if I could walk in and there was a device that was listening to me that I didn't have to have out. Right. And this is, I mean, like having finally integrated some HomeKit stuff into my home, I have only become much more demanding that my home be able to listen to me instead of me having to operate my home from my devices. I want my house listening to me. And by my house, I mean essentially the air around me. I want to be able to put the Apple equivalent of dots in my rooms and Alexa devices in my rooms, that you know, like a HomePod in rooms where I want a HomePod, and little iPods, let's call them that, small listening only devices in the other rooms, so that I can just walk around talking to my house and getting information and having things done for me. I don't want to do that through my phone. I don't. And Amazon has recognized this, and Google has recognized this, and they are just working with these other companies and putting out this blistering array of products, and Apple is nowhere to be seen, and it is annoying. Sorry for the monologue.
No, I agree. It's kind of a short thing. Yep, you're right. One topic Tiny Pix mentioned: once it's on your server, they don't need a warrant. The magic of the cloud. That's not true. If it's on a third-party server that's on the cloud, you need a subpoena. The subpoena comes through a warrant. Companies can offer it to you without the subpoena.
Like AT&T willingly AT&T and Verizon both willingly participated with warrantless wiretaps.
So there is that. If the company feels like being a dick, they can do that. But the bottom line is, you generally need a subpoena and a warrant, even if it's a third-party thing. Anyway, so Apple becoming more shitty is making me question if I want more wiretaps in my house.
I don't think we crossed that line. I do. I want Apple wiretaps in my house.
Well, let me put it this way: if it's not Apple, it's definitely no one else. I don't trust Amazon. I don't trust.
Have you seen the patents that have surfaced for Google and Amazon?
No, I haven't read them.
They have patents for compiling profiles of when we go to the bathroom, when kids are being noisy. Like Google has a patent that for determining that kids are up to mischief if they're moving around and being quiet.
Right. Well, and to be fair, a lot of patents are just paper patents. They're never really products.
But it shows a pattern of using these devices to further develop their profiles of us, which is of course what they're going to do, because that's what they fucking do. It's what Amazon does, and it's what Google does. Surprised that Facebook hasn't come out with the Facebook wiretap.
Yeah,
I'm shocked.
Yeah, and Tiny Pix made a comment that all these companies do cooperate with the government, and that is a big issue. I agree with that. And it makes me wonder. But anyway, if any company is going to do it, it would be Apple, and that I would trust. And I agree. This is one, to me. This issue is the large iPhone screen issue all over again. For whatever reason, Apple has not properly identified that this is an important segment to add to the ecosystem. And to say that Apple is not failing to compete because they chose not to compete in a market that they should be competing in is weird. The question is, should they be in here? Should they be a player? Could they advance our lives in a positive way by providing solutions to control things by voice? And are they missing an opportunity by not getting into it? And ancient astronaut theorists say yes, they are missing this opportunity. They should be in this market. The HomePod should be out. They've clearly missed a huge wave. And the funny thing is, even
wait. I don't think either of us want the HomePod to come out before it's ready. If it's not ready, it's better that it not ship.
I guess. Yes, that's probably true. My point, though, is even if they came out with it in November, they missed this huge cycle, this huge CES cycle, which I think what I was hoping to get out of you, and I think you said, at least in some oblique way, was a lot of CES boils down to voice.
Yes.
Voice.
Well, yeah, there's AI stuff going on too, but the thing that we're talking about now is about voice control.
I disagree. There's zero AI going on. There's a lot of machine learning going on. AI is completely different from machine learning, and I have yet to see a single instance of even something close to a fart.
I salute your pedantry.
It makes a difference because
it does. I salute your pedantry. You're right.
Anyway, so but yeah, they're missing out on a lot of this machine learning and voice stuff, and they really had to come out with it last year to have had a shot to be part of this wave this year. And so
but even John, this part is important too. Even if they had, I mean, like, even what Apple hasn't shipped is missing the mark, right? The HomePod, as announced, misses the mark. The HomePod competes with Sonos. It doesn't compete with Alexa, and it doesn't compete with Google Home.
Right. And Tim Cook saying, like, well, you have your iPhone with you all the time. You could just say,
yeah, fuck that, man. That's fucking wrong. That is wrong. I have, like, listen, I
let the hatred in.
Yes, this
flow through you.
This particular bit definitely borders on hatred. I have felt from the get-go that they were wrong on this, but in recent weeks, since I've got these two smart bulbs in this particular room, I've just felt it more and more and more, where controlling these lights, and I'm just talking about two freaking lights, controlling these lights with Siri only is often inconvenient, extremely inconvenient. And sometimes it doesn't even work. For instance, when I get a lights out becoming a what's up, and that just freaking annoys me.
I'll go a step further. I think the algorithm in Siri is so fucked that it actually gets worse the more you talk to it. It's weird. I got my brand new iPhone X, and there was this huge improvement.
iPhone 10.
Fucking X. In Siri understanding me and getting less typos when I dictate into the tech group and whatnot. And it actually gets worse with time, even though I do tap on the blue squiggly lines to correct mistakes over time. So there's so much work that they need to do, and they're not seeing. And not to mention, it doesn't help that the iPhone, doesn't have a good ambient mic. It's a very different mic to pick up ambient things through noise. And the HomePod, the sad thing is, it has a really interesting physical hardware setup that could battle that, right? The fact that it can get a voice command and pick it up while it's playing music is an impressive technical feat. And it's the kind of thing that would be useful for voice commands in a household where people are yelling and screaming and whatever, but you want it to discern an actual command. Right. They could solve an interesting problem that they've kind of started to solve.
Yeah, but it's got to be opened up to developers, and it's got to be opened up to device makers, and it's got to be like having it play glorious music should be the icing on the cake, not the raison d'etre of this device.
Yeah, so we're in full vehement agreement, and Tiny Pix. So one, I agree with Rick talking about returning. Someone gave me an Echo Dot 2. I'm not plugging that in because I don't want to wiretap in my house either. But the Tiny Pix mentioned. I won't read the whole thing, but the gist is, like, do I really need to do for some of these things? Voice is easier. And for a lot of complex things, voice is easier. I'll give you an example. Like when I want to enter a calendar entry, if I could just, in this work, say 90% of the time, not even 100% of the time, where I could say, hey, next Thursday, put in a calendar reminder for me to meet up with Bryan and have lunch at that place that I like with the fish, right? And it could intelligently do that. Way less tedious than me going to the calendar and finding those 3 pieces of information, hitting the right date, putting the right entry, adding the right invitees. So there is a scenario where voice is better. Even for home automation, it could be there are scenarios where it's better, where if I could tell it, like, if what we're currently abused of, and Jeff is like the Jedi master of, which is if then else stuff coordination of your home. But if I could tell it, hey, Siri, if you detect that the humidity is at this %, or that water sensor gets hit, please turn off the shutoff valve to that device, right? If I could just tell it that rather than sit and fucking program that, That's a huge gain. So there are scenarios where voice input is superior, and that Apple doesn't have the imagination to see that is kind of telling of them just missing a big potential, really interesting ecosystem component. And to me, it's at least on the same order of them missing the screen size, that they're like, why would anyone want a larger screen size? Because if we like fucking larger screen sizes. This is pretty straightforward.
It's pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
But we want to control our homes with our voices. That's pretty straightforward.
Yeah. And I agree with Tiny Pix. Like, for some things, it's just stupid. Like, I'm just going to hit the fucking switch because it's easier. But for some things, it's not. And the point is to, and some things, the sum of the parts becomes greater than the whole of the sum of the parts is greater than the sum of the parts, or whatever. I don't know how that phrase goes. But anyway, there's a network effect when you start to have a lot of little things that are tough to control and necessarily remember, but when you can have a voice interface, the system and can take care of some of this for you. They're neat things that could develop. Anyway, to me, this is one of those, it's just so straightforward. It's shocking that Apple is so late on it. The good news is I looked at the CES and there was nothing compelling. It was another CES of stupid shit that was mostly useless. The coolest thing in CES was LG's OLED 88-inch 8K display, which is awesome. And of course, probably not, it was just a demo model, but it tells you that 2 years from now that we'll probably have something like that for sale. They had refrigerators with touch screens. And here, I could show you one of the videos for them. Are you interested in seeing how useful a touch screen refrigerator is? Maybe not.
Sure.
Here, let me switch. Okay, there's no. Here's the desktop. Let's play.
Hey everybody, it's Kerry again from RC Willie, CES 2018 at the LG booth. I'm here with Norman today, and this is an InstaView fridge, which you've seen on our floors. It's super cool. This has a twist. What is it?
So if you look, normally you tap your InstaView twice and you can see through it. This one has smart technology called ThinQ. You can still see inside it, but what it allows you to do is have some smart intelligence behind it. You can add, if you put something there, you can add expiration dates.
I love typing on my fridge.
All of a sudden, you look, it's going to count down to let you know when something expires. You can add memos to it. Right here, you leave a memo, practice at 6. The first thing kids do when they get home is go into the fridge. Now they can see it. You can also has.
Yeah, why would you text your kid?
You're not much of an artist, Norman.
Yeah,
It's good.
Yeah, there you go. Exactly. It has some other abilities. It has Alexa built in. So just like you'd have an Alexa on the counter, you're going to be able to utilize this. It has a microphone and a speaker. One of the really cool things about this refrigerator is it has it built in the camera inside. So you can see the left door.
Yeah, look how great that works.
Top shelf, right door, bottom shelf.
Why would I open the fridge?
Let's say you go to the supermarket.
And this is a fridge in search of a problem.
Look, the left
but
door,
a lot of
no
CES is like this. Let me stop it.
The one last thing I really want to show you, which I
here's
think
one
is
other
cool,
thing.
This ThinQ technology is allowing all our appliances to connect to each other. So you pull up this, in this instance, a buffalo chicken pizza recipe. You start to get everything out. You say, I have to preheat the oven. You hit this right here. It says send recipe to the oven. It automatically knows.
God, this just looks awful.
450. So by the time you're ready to put the pizza in the oven's ready for you.
Very cool. Thank you so much, Norman. Appreciate it.
It's very stupid. It's just there's all these things at CES that are solutions in search of a problem that doesn't exist. And so in some sense, Apple's lucky that there's no compelling home automation shit that's really come out yet, but it will come. I guarantee you it will.
I think I've seen some stuff. I've seen devices and with the sensors to control aspects of your house that are all Alexa and Google Home compatible. Certainly there are various smart home devices that are controllable from your Alexa. So that you just gave us a great example of CES foolery, but there have been some interesting stuff coming out with Alexa and Google Home support.
Well, like I said, one that hasn't happened yet, but part of it has occurred. Dave Hamilton and Bryan and Jeff debuted. It's called, I think it was called like Defender or something like that. It's a product. It sounds boring, but if you've ever had a water leak in your house, you know it's not boring. It's water sensors, and it's literally a little robot hand that shuts off your shutoff valve for the water for your house. So if a pipe bursts or there's a water detected, it will turn off the main water valve for you, and you don't even need a plumber to install it. But you could see, like, you have to hand program in the if this sensor does this, you know, turn this crank kind of thing. But you could see, once you have an array of these kinds of things, you can start doing really interesting things with voice. Like, hey, when it's warmer on the west side of the house, you know, open the blinds kind of thing, or close the blinds, right, to cool it down without having to turn on the air conditioner or something on. And you could just have these off the cuff things, and the system will make the programs for you, so to speak. It becomes very Star Trek like. So there are things that are coming. The good news is, I guess, for Apple is, as much as we bitch about it, they might not actually be late to market, even though CES was full of this fury of talk. Most of the talk was useless. I don't like talking to my fridge. Is just it's again, it's one of those. It's a solution seeking a problem that doesn't exist yet.
Yep.
So it might not be as bad as it seems as we're shitting on them, but nonetheless, it's a place where I think Apple is.
Listen. If Apple had articulated any kind of strategy here, and you know, I'm the first to bitch, especially at Wall Street analysts who criticize Apple for not having articulated a strategy, saying that they're losing some kind of, I guess I'm doing the same goddamn thing here, except for the fact that Apple actually has articulated something.
When you do it, you know much more than those dumb dipshits. That's the big difference.
Well, and Apple has articulated a strategy. Apple has articulated a strategy with HomePod that I think is a losing strategy. Don't compete with Sonos. I love Sonos. Sonos does great things. Sonos is great. That's wonderful. The idea of HomePod playing great sounding music, man. I love great sounding music. That's great too. But give me a way to control my fucking house.
Yeah. So some companies, I think it was Samsung, announced that by 2020, all their home appliances will be smart appliances, meaning that you will be able to if then else them, right? And I think the good news is there's still time to have a solution by 2020 by Apple, although God knows.
Yeah, there's plenty of time for Apple to do this. And for all we know, Apple is doing this. For all we know, this is what Apple has been doing, right? Apple is always late to a market, right? And Apple has been identifying the points at which Alexa fails and identifying the points at which Google Home fails. And they're working on that kind of smart home solution behind the scenes. They haven't said anything yet. And a HomePod is only one tiny component of what will be eventually a much bigger, broader, and better smart home voice activated strategy. But I fear that it's not. Yeah. That's my thing.
We vehemently circle jerked ourselves in agreement at this point, to the point where it's unseemly. Laura, you know, made I'm gonna usurp a little bit what Laura said, which is basically, hey, why don't these assholes do something useful in the meantime, like put out a Mac with a fucking touchscreen?
She did not say that.
That was exactly word for word what Laura.
That is not.
That I'm right, and
that is wrong. Not even.
No.
That is not even vaguely close.
Exactly. Exactly. And she said that you should be ashamed of yourself that it took you so long to agree how right I was about having a toaster fridge device that Apple should be making. And
I've come around, and I've absolutely come around.
Well, damn it! I hate when you agree that it takes all the.
Well, you know.
All right. So.
Oh my God, she just backed you up. That's all I'm saying.
So I agree with that. And all right, I'm going to keep my conspiracy theories about the number of views we had on one episode to myself for now, even though I know it makes you cranky, which should make me just say it. But all right, how are we doing on time?
We are 58 minutes in.
All right, so we have time for my quick rant on parenting.
No, we don't have time for your fine. Do your quick rant on parenting.
All right, fine.
No, don't do it. Just do it. You've already said it now. You like
I don't have to.
No, do it.
So fuck these two asshole shareholders that want Apple to add more granular control to they want more controls to keep their kids from being addicted to iPhones. To them, I say, go fuck yourselves. You suck dick. All your kids are ruined already because the fact that you actually brought this up is basically an admission that you're a shitty fucking parent. And on the one hand, I'm torn because having more granular control for parental controls and whatever is actually a good thing, and I'm happy for it. But it's coming from me, this is going to be extremely ironic. So prepare yourself, Brian. But it's the whiny bitchiness of it that these people have, rather than actually confront their own kids and say, hey, you piece of shit kid, you can only use this device for an hour today, or at this time today, or put the fucking thing down. No, they can't actually talk to their kids. Everyone is much more comfortable sending mean fucking tweets to perfect strangers and shitting on each other, but they can't confront their own kid and say, put down the fucking iPhone. No, they need a device, a piece of software in the middle where they can actually avoid talking to their kids and telling them why they might not want to pick up that iPad or do as they're told. Instead, they need Apple to do that. And the fact that their kids are addicted has nothing to do with what shitty fucking parents they are, but how bad Apple is for not doing their job for them of parenting. And so that part kind of annoys me. It's more of a sickness in the culture that people can't confront them. And if you actually look at Steve Jobs and his own parenting, he didn't let his kids use these devices. And he didn't have parental controls on him. He just said, hey, kid, you're only allowed to use this device this much or not all or at this time. And the shocking thing is his fucking kids actually listen to amazing innovation he had. Talk to your kids and say, do this shit, and actually parent them instead of having a fucking piece of software as your crutch for why you suck at being a parent. Anyway, that's all I got to say on that. Unless you could tell me how wrong I am or...
No, I generally agree with you. I've heard some scary stories about what parents ask teachers to tell their kids for them. It's pretty crazy. And here's where we run the risk of disagreeing.
Okay. This would be a first, so I'm prepared.
This would not be a first. Apple is, and the thing is Apple is aware of this. Apple has created these devices that have become very, very addictive. People get addicted to notifications. They get, the social media likes and the number of followers you have and things like that. This has proven to be a thing that young people, especially, but all of us can become addicted to. Apple has said that one of the reasons why they created Apple Watch was because they wanted to get our heads out of our phones. It's like Apple is aware of this. And I don't think it's Apple's responsibility to solve it, but I think as a society that it would behoove society if we did find a solution or a way to mitigate these some of these addictive aspects to these devices.
I don't think, unlike some other services, I don't think Apple set out to make anything actually become addictive. It may be the case that some people get addicted, but people get addicted to all kinds of weird things. There was a dude I remember that had a porn addiction, and he was sexually attracted to his MacBook a few years back. Do you remember that thing? It's weird.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
I'm like, all right,
I blocked it. One of the two.
You can't give too much of a shit about the weird fringe cases, but this is clearly more than just a weird fringe case. But my point is, why was Steve Jobs able just to tell his kid, hey, you're not allowed to use this except for 1 hour a day or whatever it was that he did, and his kid listened?
Yep.
Why? This is the bigger problem, that parents' inability to control their kids just by saying so is kind of a bad cultural direction we've gone into.
Yeah, for sure.
So that's kind of like the thermonuclear issue. And yeah, I agree, like having finer controls, because a lot of people have bitched to me, and I agree with them, like the controls are so non-granular on like putting like whitelisting or blacklisting or putting limits on websites that your kids can see when you do the parental controls on your Mac or whatnot. They're so shitty that parents end up just turning them off because they restrict too many things, and having a better mechanism for that would be good. I'm with you there, but it's the fact that it's not coming out of like that. It's coming out of these people don't want a parent is the real issue. And so I'm just a big go fuck yourselves. Your kids suck because your kids suck because you sucked as a parent. And maybe you need to take a look at yourself and figure out why you can't tell your kid you're not.
These two shareholders, by the way, were institutional investors.
Yeah, well, they can go fuck themselves. I don't give a shit.
Yeah, just, I mean, it wasn't two parents.
Yeah, I get that, but whatever.
Okay. All right.
All right. Moving on to topic number 3. Yeah, it's only 3 because we're lying. Oak Island.
There's a new episode this week.
Yeah, and
last week.
We'll talk about it in a few weeks. So,
and we are both obsessed with Oak Island.
Yes. So Oak Island is this island where there may be buried treasure, or maybe the biggest money pit, waste of money for treasure seekers ever of all time.
Or both.
And spoilers, blah 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 blah. But one of the brothers went to Europe with the 2 nephews, and they were trying to see a Knights Templar connection. And dude, every time that announcer, since he's from Ancient Aliens, every time they said, "Could this be a Knights Templar over there?" It was a knee jerk. It was a fucking Pavlovian response. Ancient astronaut theorists say yes.
Yeah, right. I know. And it's the same production company, same producer, and the same narrator, who I think is the producer behind Ancient Aliens, are the folks who actually bought the show or run the show, developed the show.
Anyway, to me, it was interesting because there's so many fuck ups on that island, from all the treasure hunters blowing up the one rock that seemingly had some of the Templar markings, like the cross with the coins.
You're talking about from in the decades and centuries past, not with the current group.
Yeah, there was apparently a boulder on the island that had a lot of markings, and some of the treasure hunters thought underneath the big giant boulder would be treasure, so they blew the fuck out of this thing.
Right.
And there's like a little picture of one of the broken pieces, but they just obliterated. And what's crazy is, like, I guess no one thought to, like, maybe we should take photographs of all the markings before we blow this motherfucker up. But fuck it. They just blew it up in the 1920s. And one of the markings was a cross with 4 coins. And they gave a little bit of the etymology. So they went to Europe. They went to this one castle by this lady because they had a map that showed one old time French family might have been involved with the Templars and might be responsible for knowing that Oak Island exists really early on, because the map was like from the 1400s or some crazy shit like that. And they went to investigate to see in this castle if there was any connection, and it was really more or less a bust. But then they went to another castle while they were there that was served as a prison for the Knights Templar, who were basically crusading knights. And they got caught, and they were basically held for, I think it was 7 years or so, and then executed. And they made a lot of carvings in their prison cell. And some of the carvings had also the crosses with the 4 coins. And part of the etymology to me that was super interesting, I wonder if you caught it. The 4 coins represented banking. Did you catch that?
Say it again.
The 4 coins around the cross represented banking.
No, I did not catch that.
Yeah, it was part of their description of, where to come from, why are there 4 coins, and part of it had to do with potential banking. So now you're like, shit, banking and treasure seem somewhat related, and the fact that there's a cross with the 4 coins.
Well, and the fact that we didn't have the narrator go banking, is it possible that, and like immediately go on some far-fetched speculation on what that could mean? That's actually been my big takeaway from the whole season, is while we haven't had the sheer unrelenting assault of bullshit specious conclusions reached with a minimum of evidence, and the fact that they aren't doing that makes me think that they found something and they're holding on to it.
So they've been cock teasing with the last 2 episodes completely, and the one previous this episode was a complete waste of time. It was just an annoyingly value-free episode. Although the last one at least was interesting in the Templar connection, and that actually the cross with the 4 coins is not a strictly Templar sign. It was a Crusaders sign. So meaning people that were Crusaders were not necessarily Knights Templar, although they may have cooperated at the time. So there was some interesting background on this, but you look at this and there were so many pieces of evidence over the years that they found that had these kinds of markings on it that you start to wonder, shit, then it could be Templar treasure. And Templar treasure is so juicy, interesting, because
it's true.
Beyond the Ark of the Covenant, there's so many rumored, and the Holy fucking Grail, for fuck's sake. There's so many juicy things those folks can be might have had. The one thing I worry about is they're boring into this shit. They could be totally destroying it. But I hope the next episode at this point, they just fucking dig the fucking hole and grab shit out of it, for fuck's sake. I want to see some shit come out of there. And the other thing I don't get is they keep sending divers in there, and the divers clearly make a mess of kicking up suit. I don't know why they don't have a little submersible with the little robot hand.
They've done a submersible. Well, they've done a camera.
It's never had a robot hand. So whenever they send the submersible, just a camera, it doesn't kick up nearly as much soot, and they got some good imagery, right? And if the thing just had a little claw or something, they might have been able to do something with that. And that technology exists, so I don't get why they haven't thought to use that, because every time they send down the diver, it turns into a shit show.
But they haven't sent down a diver this year.
That's true, but my point is that they're digging the bore hole that they're digging is again the super wide one, which means they're likely going to send down a diver. You know what I mean? And it's a bust every fucking time. And I wish they would just send down a little robot with a claw, so if they see a shiny thing in undisturbed water, they can actually grab on.
I wish they would send down a vacuum tube and just vacuum up the bottom of the hole.
Well, this gets into a little bit of the destruction too. Like, they're digging this shit, and I don't blame them, because at a certain point you're just like, fuck it. But shakes, it's pretty clear we're going to destroy the vast majority of them in the water rushing in and bores tunneling and shit like that, which is going to be sad. But I don't know if there's really another way around it. I'm shocked that these guys have got as much money as they do to spend on this thing, because this is millions and millions of dollars for what totally could be a total tits up show.
Well, one of the brothers is an energy industry businessman, so he's got a ton of money. The older brother, Rick, I think that's the oldest one, right? The guy with the dyed long hair and the gray beard,
the one that got Lyme disease this year.
Yeah. He is a retired postal worker. Mm-hmm. But also, keep in mind that they have gotten probably considerable money from the TV show.
Yeah, knock wood. I hope that's the case, because it's so fast. And my guess is I don't think they've ever voiced this. But they whatchamacallit, they I think that most governments work out deals where we'll let you work on this, but we get 50% of any treasure, basically. I don't know what the deal is in Canada. No, in Canada, it's so communist-like, it might be 80% or whatever. But I wish they would actually share what that deal is, because their splits on this between their investors and some of the original workers there is, I hope what they find is just like 18 tons of gold and the Holy fucking Grail and everything else, so it's all priceless and they all do great. But yeah, anyway, the bottom line is the next episode, if it's not a typical total cock tease thing, at least they're going to be going down a hole after I think it was it 4 episodes ago, 3 or 4 episodes ago, they actually hit something interesting. So
they did, and we haven't heard about it since. Again, I call that a good sign based on the producer style of the show.
So barring normal Oak Island cock tease episodes, next episode promises to be interesting. And the one good thing about this show is it's a show that I think you're a fool to go back and watch old episodes. You just start watching. So much of the show is repetitive. Like they show like the last 18 episodes within 3 episodes of catch up that they always do before every new little bit they do, that you could start tomorrow fresh and be intrigued by this show. Anyway, I thought it was interesting. The Knights Templar connection, I think, definitely was strengthened by what went on. in this last episode. So
fair enough. I don't put a whole lot of stock into that particular line, but I do see what you I see why you're saying that.
Yeah. All right, we beaten that horse.
Yeah, I think so. And we're at 1 hour and 13 minutes and 46 seconds.
Our sweet spot. And let's call it a day, shall we?
Let's call it a day. Absolutely. Hey, I want to thank everybody for joining us. If you enjoyed the show, we'd very much love it.
What's wrong with you?
What are you talking?
If they enjoyed this show.
Okay. Thank you, everybody who joined us for the live stream. We appreciate the feedback throughout the show. If you enjoyed this, whether or not you watch this in the live stream or if you're watching this later, we would love it if you hit the subscribe button. That's right. I think it's right there.
Oh, you're in the wrong spot.
I think it's right there. And we would love it if you hit that subscribe button very much. And we hope to see you for the next episode.
Thank you all for joining us. And on that popular topic, we will see you next week.